Can everybody see the screen? People are happy and calm and focused, a bit tired. You really love this platform. That's great. So a lot of you used the sticky notes, and some of you used the little text boxes. So what we'll do here is we'll just do the reverse. If you use the sticky note before, this time use a text box. And if you use the text box before, please use a sticky note. So take a moment to practice using the sticky note or the text box. And what is one thing you hope to gain from our time together today? And Victoria's struggling with access, so she's just going to put her comments in the chat, which is totally fine. And we see joyful practice and learning, using CDEs in real life examples. Interested to map CDE on high-performing teams and enjoying CDE model applied to resilience in particular, and practice. Learning more about the resilience model that I came up with, okay, and hear what others' thoughts are about leadership, depth of understanding. Okay. Well, continue to capture your ideas. Even if I scroll past, you guys are in control of the platform on your end, and you can navigate pretty much to any page regardless of where I am. So I'd like to take a moment here and tell you a little story of a resilient, high-performing team. This is Team Kinetic, and it's a sailing team. And in 2016, they were the winner of the Vic Maui International Yacht Race. And the Vic Maui Yacht Race goes from Victoria, BC to Lahaina, Maui. And this race and this team are very special to me because my husband is the person driving the boat in each of these three photographs. And they won the race. They were the second across the line and first, they corrected first overall in their time. And the race was 2,308 nautical miles. It took them 365 plus days to plan and prepare. They completed the race in 8 days, 14 hours, 16 minutes, and 46 seconds. There were 9 crew members, 3 hurricanes that year in the Pacific at the time they were racing. The team itself, they divided into 2 watch crews, and each crew had its own crew lead. One of the members of the 9 crew was the skipper and owner. And one of the members, he was one of the crew leads. And one of the members of the team was a navigator who could float. He had no set schedule, no set crew. He was in charge of his own schedule and time. And of course, they were all contained on one sailboat, a Transpac 52, on one ocean, the Pacific Ocean. So I thought this would be a really fun story in keeping with the simple rules of HSD, and bring a little joy and light and inspiration to what it means to be a resilient, high-performing team. So I would like to just invite us to think about what is resilience. Resilience, I have 2 definitions. One is the capacity to absorb disturbance without breaking down. And the other is to recover quickly from setbacks. So for us to be thinking about how did this team apply resilience in their efforts and in this particular race, and for you to be thinking about what resilience is in general. And what is high performance? This definition comes from Supporting Lines, another organization, one of my partners that I work very closely with. A high performance culture means that we achieve more goals while creating a positive, fulfilling human experience. And so what was it about the dynamics of what was going on that was creating this opportunity for such high performance. So group number 1 will explore containers, differences, and exchanges relating to teams' performance. And group number 1 will stay here in our main space. And the idea is that we will use our sticky notes and use the orange sticky notes to identify containers, the pink ones to identify differences, and the green ones to identify exchanges. The group 1 has a reference sheet on slide 14. And then group 2, the resilience team will break out into a separate space, and same process, orange for container, pink for differences, and green for exchanges. And there is a reference sheet here on slide 16 if you'd like some references in terms of some traits of resilience. And this is another one of the partners that I work closely with, the Resilient Mind. So, so why don't we take a moment now? I'll just move back and we will break out into, so I'm going to open up all the Zoom space, the Zoom rooms, and you should have an opportunity to, select which room you'd like, or if you'd like to break out into the resilience space. So if you'd like to go into resilience, select that. And if you'd like to stay in the performance, just don't select anything and just stay here. So I'll just let that flow for a moment.
Catherine, I'm not clear on how to select it.
Oh, I think you can just click join. Click resilience if you want to join the resilience group. Okay. So
Catherine, should we be seeing the options at this point to join?
Yeah, I don't have it. I don't have any.
I don't see any options.
And I'm sorry, Catherine, what are the 2 groups?
There's one group, which is the resilience group, and you can click, do you see the option to click on resilience?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, it says join, but there are too many people already in resilience, I thought.
Oh, well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in resilience, and we've got the sort of a half, and the other half of us here. So okay. Are we okay to just proceed in this space? Those of you who are here with me now?
Yeah.
Sure,
yeah?
whatever's easy.
Sure.
Great. Okay. Yeah. All right then. So I'll just close that off. So what container, that we're moving into our exploration, what containers, differences, and exchanges influence a team's performance? And we can just do a little bit of a popcorn. So Stacy, I'll invite you to help us along here. And what comes up to mind for you when you think about a container or a difference or an exchange? Oh, you're muted.
The first thing that comes to my mind is the composition of the team, and that it needs to be kind of like I think a Goldilocks set of differences. If there's not enough, the team is boring and they're all the same. And if there's too much, it might be a little too hot to handle.
Okay, so I've added that on the screen. Anybody else? Does anybody else have, oh, and that's supposed to be orange. See, I did it.
No, pink.
Orange.
Pink.
There we go. Oh, is that containers or differences? Sorry.
That was I said it as the team itself would be the container. I said it as differences within that container. So a different.
All right, pink. There we go.
Actually, I have a container. They've got 2 shifts. So there's 2 different watch groups. So you've got at least 2 watch groups.
Yeah. So shifts in the case of the team, of the Kinetic team, for sure. So shifts,
Right.
yeah, watch groups. Whoops.
I have a container, Catherine, and that's the weather conditions.
Ah, yeah. Okay, so
Now,
weather
I have a
conditions.
question. Are we doing this generally, or are we doing it regarding the ships?
I think the ship was a story to kind of get us to be thinking about what those containers, what would you guys like to do? Would you like to think in general, or would you like to think in terms of the story of the sailing team?
I prefer to think of the story of the sailing team because I learn better from specific to general. So if that works for other people, that would be great.
It's
Okay.
fine with me.
All right, sounds good. So weather conditions, the shift watch groups, what are some of the other containers that played into this story, or differences or exchanges?
I like exchanges. I'd like to know how the team interact. What's the quality of their interaction? How do they get along?
I was curious about the same. I'm wondering about previous relationships and group norms.
Yeah.
Okay. And feel free, if you guys want to type something up in here, feel free if I'm not speedy enough here. So what was the other one? Group norms?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Group norms. Was there something else that you wanted me to say? We can always edit it.
While we're on exchanges, I'm really curious about their communication, how they communicated. I'm imagining things have to happen very clearly and fast at times, and I'm wondering what the modes of communication are.
Yelling.
How did the team communicate? Okay.
And how is there communication between teams if there's a shift change and there's something one needs to let the next know?
Right.
Mhm.
I'm guessing too, there's differences around night and day because it's a 24-hour race. So is there anything that happens differently in the night than the day? Maybe not. I don't know.
I'm interested in differences in skill sets between the two teams or the two crews, and I'm interested also in skill sets within each of those teams within each shift.
So between and within the crews.
Yes, and obviously how effectively they're demonstrating the skills that they're meant to have.
Great. Oh, I think I'm seeing some other folks add in. Are these mine, or did I see some other folks add in some different ideas here? Okay.
I added, I thought it might be a container, or maybe it's a difference. I could probably be all of them. So what motivates them? I think that can be like a container for what brings them together to be part of the group. But it could also be a difference because they might have different motivations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, great idea. Thank you. Oh, I see roles and responsibilities. Who would like to comment about that?
That was me. Roles and responsibilities about the different functions that the team members perform. Like who does the sail ship, who puts up the sail, who does the steering. I'm sure there's many other descriptive terms that others could talk about. The lines being pulled through, like all of the different functions.
Yeah, exactly. And did I see another one that came up here recently? Oh, conflict. How did they handle conflict?
Mhm.
That could, boy, that seems to me like it would cross containers and differences and exchanges. Oh, the boat is the container. Yes, for sure.
In a difference, we had weather conditions, but also they're related. But what was the ocean doing?
Yeah, the currents, right?
Games and yeah.
Would the ocean be a container or an exchange?
It could be all three. It could be how are they interacting with it? Could be a difference. How is it different today, tomorrow? And it's certainly a container.
Oh, sorry. What did I click on? Oh, I clicked on the image. There we go. So the ocean is, it could be it's a container. So we have sort of the ocean is a container. And then Stacy, you said it could also be, what was the difference?
Say the ocean conditions or the ocean behavior.
Right. And so for different boats, like there were like 20 boats in the race, different boats were positioned at different places in the ocean and differently and also had a different relationship to where the hurricanes were, right? And so the wind and the currents were different for each of the boats in terms of looking at the race situation. And then what was the ocean exchange that you were talking about?
I'm sorry, was that Helen who said that?
No.
Oh, Catherine? Sorry.
Oh, I was asking, yeah, Stacy, what were the different exchanges you were talking about in terms of the ocean?
But it was
maybe currents, like the currents and the waves and as it hits against the boat.
Yeah, so there's that exchange right between what the boat does, how the boat responds, what the boat does, what the water does, right?
Yeah, sort of movement and energy in terms of how that responds. And yeah, interesting.
So I added,
as a possible exchange, how the crew is interacting, crew members are interacting or working effectively as a team.
So how do the crew members, say that again, Will?
How are the crew members working together effectively as a team?
Okay.
I added the, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Yep.
I added the race. The race is definitely a container.
Yes.
You're going to sail way differently when you're in a race than you are when you're not, or at least most people do.
Yep. Yes, we do. That's why I like cruising.
Yep, me too. I'm all about cruising.
Yeah, exactly. I would rather not have to race at night. I like cruising at night, but I don't like to race at night.
No.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm interested about the differences in terms of what are major implications if with the weather conditions or if it shifts suddenly. Who is having the dominant behavior? It would be a leadership, but it would be also the decision making. Power.
Yeah. For me, there's that's probably gonna. Did you say the Navigator was a very float position?
Yes.
They were up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm actually thinking the Navigator themselves might be a container because they're going to be responsible for a lot of calls, like which way do we go and what's the weather doing? So which way do we go?
Well, and I'm assuming, although it's a great big ocean, if you can see the position of the other boats, that's a difference that may determine what of those actions you take.
Right. So they don't run into each other or.
Oh, sorry. I got caught with moving some of these things around so I could see what they were saying. Could you say that again, Stacy?
Well, I'm thinking that some of the decision making may depend on where the other boats are. Am I ahead of the pack? Am I behind the pack? If I know that. That could also be an exchange if I do something that causes another boat to do something else. But the interaction.
Look at the boats as patterns.
Yeah. So what will happen is that when the boat, I can't remember in this race if the boats are allowed to necessarily see where they are digitally, but often if they're, I can't remember now if they can do that in the race, but yeah, if they're certainly within eye shot, or if they're within sight of each other, and they're watching how the other boats are tacking or jibing or what they're doing, then the boats will often change and cover or or do something in response to what the other boats are doing.
My guess is for safety, they'd all have their AIS on so they could see each other if there was a potential collision.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm thinking that's probably happening.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. It's funny, I can't remember. There's a certain restriction as far as how much information they can get from outside. Like they're certainly able to retrieve weather information and things like that. And you're right about likely being able to see sort of general boat
that's
location.
actually really interesting in terms of exchanges. How much do they actually know about each other during the race, right? Like, about the other boats. Like, do you just know position, or do you know, typically you would know their boat speed, you would know all kinds of things actually. So yeah, but I wonder if they turned some of that off for the race.
And I wonder about external communication with the world at large, families or political events, and what kind of emotional pressures that might put on people.
Yeah, I can speak to just one of the things I did was I sent a daily joke through. So I had to, the line of communication was those of us who were families, we could send an email to the skipper's wife. She was sort of like chief of the shore crew. And then she would then relay in a single email batched all the personal messages to the crew, and they would get read out. And yeah, I got good at finding some really silly jokes to do exactly that, to stay connected and to kind of offer some humor to lift their spirits. Yeah.
Interesting that they were able to get wireless connections to be able to receive those emails.
Yep. So they had a transmitter that would allow them, a sat phone and a transmitter that allowed them to receive digital exchanges of information.
So this is reminding me of another container, which is all of the rules that govern the race.
Actually, when I said the race, that's exactly what I meant. All the things that are to do. So you might want to edit or take mine off, because that's exactly what I meant.
Can somebody go in and help me? One of you just move.
I can delete.
No, you don't. Delete. Oh yeah, delete, or just I'm starting to lose the formatting, kind of grouping the colors together as I pop these notes up. This is fantastic, you guys. Now, if we look at some of the cycle in terms of the one of the things as an individual difference within each of the human beings is sort of their own, and somebody else touched on this, their own response to like dangerous weather conditions, or something, what's their pressures. And what I find to be most curious is noticing how well can these individuals stay regulated, and then how does that regulation then enhance the ability to maintain communication, maintain healthy relationships, and then how that influences the collaboration, the trust, and then ultimately the agility and the performance of the team in response to all these things that are changing. So that's sort of how I see this flow.
Catherine, are you referring really to almost to their emotional intelligence, really?
Yeah, that's
pressures.
So would that be, I guess that would be it could be a difference, right? The emotional intelligence would be the difference within the individuals, and the individuals being the containers.
I think I don't know the system really well, but I think it could also be a container if it's a system that's consciously set up, like the collective emotional intelligence of the crew or of the leader.
Right. Okay. So the emotional intelligence between individuals is a difference, but then we have the container, which is the collective emotional intelligence of the team. Did I hear you right?
Let's take that one step further. The collective emotional intelligence of the team. is very much a function of the psychological safety which is created by the leader.
Okay. Yes.
Is the team able to are team members able to speak up? Are they able to challenge each other in terms of decisions that are made, or how to work together, or how to deal with difficult conditions?
Yeah. Yeah. And then that makes me wonder about the individual. If we looked at the teams, you've got the A team and the B team, how were there differences in their performance, one compared to the other?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick time check here. I set the room up. Do we have folks joining in from the other room?
Yep, we're back.
Oh, you're back. Wonderful. Great. So we'll just, now I can't see everybody. Is everybody back into the main space?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh, wonderful. Great. So let's move into a little sharing. Who has a hankering? I've got the performance teams slide up right now. Can everybody see it? Those of you who've come back into the space, can you see the slide 13?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So who from the performance group would like to give some commentary about the slide that we have in front of us right now?
Yeah.
Well, we see a lot of similarities, actually. Not sure if I see too much difference, actually.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay. So Barb, you were in the resilience group. Why don't you notice what you see on the performance group, and we'll have somebody from the performance group notice the resilience. That would be kind of fun.
Did you ask me a question?
Yeah, I was saying, why don't, if you don't mind, just maybe offer some of what you're noticing in terms of what you see that came out of the performance conversation, and then we'll switch, and somebody from the performance will notice the resilience conversation.
Well, I don't know if this answers your question, but as we were winding up, we said we were expecting to see similar things in the performance and the resilience area. That we were expecting to, within this case study, we're expecting to see the same sort of CDEs noted. Some of them are different, but we have them. Maybe we saw it as a container rather than a difference or whatever, but very similar, unless someone else in my group wants to weigh in. And I mean, they also have things that we don't have. But.
Okay.
You know, one thing has me thinking though is there's performance and there's high performance. And, you know, if we were just to say performance, I mean, is there a difference that makes a difference in these that makes it a high performing team versus a performing team? Are they the same leverage areas, or is there something unique?
And I have a similar question. Is there such a thing? I don't think so on your little model here, Catherine, but can you have a high performing team that's not resilient?
I'll put that in the text box on here. So can you have a high performing team that is not resilient? And I'll just move that.
I wonder if the reverse is a good question too. Can you have a resilient team that's
can you have a
not
resilient
high performing?
Right. Okay, so let's okay, so can you have a resilient team that is not it doesn't, my computer is not.
I'll try it.
Somebody's,
maybe it's because it's full up.
It's possible.
So
we'll just have to ask ourselves, remember to ask that question. We can put it in the chat. We'll capture the chat.
Yeah. So one of the questions I'm having here is that I can imagine these conditions being set up so that the team is an absolute collapse. It would also have group norms. It would also have, it'd be in the boat. It would also have differences of abilities. It would also, so I'm not sure what here is value laden. They all seem pretty neutral, and that we're assuming positive, but does that make sense? That these are the characteristics, unjudged, and where does the judgment come from of better and worse?
Maybe skill sets. I mean, it would lend itself to that if I'm understanding your question, which is on this, it's the pink set. There's one that's just identified as skill set.
You can see some that look like they could be better or worse. For example, how do they handle conflict?
Oh, but I'm saying
know?
handling conflict is neutral. It could be they handle it well or they handle it badly. It would still be a difference of handling conflict. That's what I mean. Yeah.
And what are the metrics? Yes. And what are the metrics that you use for those? And how do you know how, if your team using what metrics show you that you're becoming a high performing team?
Yeah.
Well,
and either one of them, I guess the way to say it is any one of them could have a positive on it or a negative on it.
Yeah.
And it still would still be the same Post-it note.
So Glenda, maybe it's because we don't know how boats run. But for example, we talked about exchange communication. And the question was, how do they communicate? Assuming that it would have to be very tight, a tight exchange, right? It has to be quick and clear and to the point because things are happening fast. But we put it down as, how do they communicate? Because we're just making an assumption about that. But that is, so I think what you're suggesting is how might you go through and think about that with all of these? Or with some of them.
And Stacy, when you said that the whole business of being on a boat, it's tight. So if this is a tight container, then the rules are very tight and the requirements of responding to that is very tight. Everything is quick and tight. And it's like the CDE, if it's a triangle, it's just like a little diamond. It's just pinched if you're going to win the race.
Even interestingly, I'm thinking the resiliency is tight, right? You can't go, oh, there's a hurricane. Let's stop and think about it for 24 hours and ponder what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also saw Bridget's comment in there about fit for function. So, you know, if you have a high performing team, is everyone able to discern what's fit for purpose and what's fit for function in any given moment?
So, for example, you have somebody who's on foredeck, or you have somebody perhaps who's driving, or somebody who's managing the mainsail, and they specialize in that skill set. If you have the person who specializes in taking the jib up and down, you put them on the steering wheel, on the helm, are they going to perform as well? So fit for function. Good example.
And maybe even zooming out, I mean, if you're taking a sailboat on a race versus on an outing, your high performance team might, you know, the differences that you're seeking on a high performing outing team versus a high performing racing team, I would imagine would be some would be the same and some would be different. You would still want them all to know how to sail a boat, but
yeah.
So high performance cruising is different than high performance racing.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Now, I'm also wondering about the Navigator. The Navigator has liberty to move around in time and space, but there's only one of them. So how resilient is that? If something happens to the Navigator, is there overlap between the skill sets? You know,
so is that a difference or exchange in the overlap of skill sets?
You know, or is that I feel like
that's a conscious choice they've made.
Yeah, it's got to be one of the systems that they build in redundancies of skill sets.
So that would be a container.
So there's a role, but the crew can move in and out of the role, perhaps, right? So they might have identified roles, and some of which that have broader flexibility and other ones that are narrow, but the actual skills that people have may have a different range as well, where some with overlap.
So the roles could be containers, and then the differences are the degree of skill that individuals have within that container.
Yes,
for that
and then they
particular
have to
skill
cover all
set.
the bases with the collective. Yes, yes. Yeah.
I'm just thinking the roles of the, it's sort of the responsibilities of each role on the boat. There are designated, that you've got a trimmer, you have a driver, you have a navigator, you have, you know, all these different
And the
people.
skills, yeah.
Yeah.
Roles and the skill without the person, right?
Yeah.
Skills
And most sailors
required. Yeah.
would most sailors would have multiple skills. And then so to answer your question, my thought would be that if somebody couldn't do something because they got injured, there would be someone that could step in and do their work. But you're right, not everybody can step in and do everybody else's work at the same level.
Yeah, and I was going to say that maybe difference isn't tolerated. It's sort of very well, because you have to be an expert and be very good at what you're doing. And if you say, yeah, I don't want to lift the jib today, I think I want to steer the boat or whatever. It's like, no, that's not your specialty. And we're here to win the race. Right?
Well, and power also relating to chain of command. Because
Yes.
a boat, my husband will often say a boat is a dictatorship. It really follows the model of military model.
Paramilitary. So
Yeah.
that's an exchange. That's sort of that's a tight exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah, a curiosity I would have is the person who is most responsible in terms of captain, is that the owner? Because if they're different, that can create an interesting dynamic.
Can you say that again? I didn't quite capture that.
Well, if you have the person who's driving the boat, they're captaining the boat, isn't necessarily always the owner, because the owner realizes they don't have the captain skills that the captain has. And so, however, you know, a hurricane shows up, and then there might be a difference in who wants to do what at that moment because of their different perspectives.
So the driver isn't always the owner. So that's one.
Right.
That's one. That's a difference.
It is.
Driver versus owner, right? And then what was the other piece?
Well, for me, it would be decision making in a crisis. Who really is the dictator in that moment?
Yeah.
And does the race trump safety, or does safety trump the race? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, exactly.
Helen, that's always Jean.
Yeah, that's always Jean.
For those of you who don't know, Helen lives on a boat and has sailed from Canada to New Zealand, so has quite a lot of experience.
Yeah. So those are simple rules, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Oh, this has been a lot of fun. We're coming up on time. We could go forever on this. And I noticed that let's just take a moment and we'll move over to the resilience just to have a quick glance at, look at how you guys organized. We have bunk and the roles and the boat itself, the shared goals, the trust, the history of the race, the skipper and leaders on board, the ocean, those are the containers. Then the differences were the GPS locations over time, right? Because they're moving, and trust between team members, experiences of the team, skills and background, benefits of the systemic resilience, weather conditions, pace of change of the wind, and the boat's response, right? And that is also, the boat's response is a function of the crew's response, because they are trimming the sails, and the sail maybe changing the sails, and huge. The roles, then physical fitness levels, that we didn't capture in the other one. The storm or storms, the individual ability to anticipate change, Right. And the level of sleep, yes, absolutely. Different sleep quality, and the people that are getting, my husband will say that it was like being, if you imagine a Smarties in a Smartie box, that's what it was like for 9 days. Yeah. Our capacity to deal with differences. And then the exchanges are the wind direction and intensity on the sails. Yes, because that's the transfer of energy, right? They're harnessing the wind energy, and that's what's propelling them forward. The weather changes, the wind, rain, storms, hurricanes, responsiveness to surroundings, shift changes, ability to execute the process of the change, technical protocols, right? That didn't come up in the other group. Handoffs, absolutely. And language, yes. Briefs and debriefs, yes. Nonverbal communication and the support the team members. Yes. Oh my goodness, this is just amazing. Thank you, everybody. This is a lot of fun. Just noticing time here. Oh, we'll move on. There we go. So do we have a minute to just capture everybody like popcorn style, either with a text box or with a sticky note? Maybe respond to one, find your favorite question and just put your response next to the favorite question. So we have, why are CDEs important to explore? And what patterns or conclusions are emerging? Maybe should we look at, maybe just pick one. The group can kind of, maybe we just all together pick one question. I don't know, how do we want to handle that? Or would it just be easier to put it in the chat at this point?
I just want to build on what Glenda said, and it was a very insightful thing, was that there's something about the resilience being wedded to the person itself. I think we thought about resilience as individual, and maybe performance, you were thinking about it as the whole. So maybe we were thinking about it as a part, and performance is about the whole.
So is that a question?
Kind of like internal and external. So the resilience differences and stuff were inside the boat. Mm. Are we resilient inside the boat? And performance is more like with other boats and externally as well. So that just seems like that was the pattern that seemed to be showing up.
That's true.
You know, it's interesting because when you're on a big race, like that, what the other boats are doing isn't that big a deal. You just got to race your race because you're so far away from everybody. You're not competing next to one another. You got to race where you are. So I'm not sure I'm buying that last idea.
Yeah, you got to race your own race. That's it exactly, Helen.
Oh, that's interesting. Thanks for that clarification.
Sure.
Although you do learn from them and how they are responding to conditions, you may see things that you haven't noticed, or you don't see them at all, maybe at that scale.
Not really. You don't. They're gone. Okay. Everybody's disappeared.
They could be hundreds of miles apart.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hundreds of miles. You might not even see them.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
you won't.
Visually.
Hardly. After about an hour, they're gone.
Yeah.
However, if you do see the GPS positions, I don't know if you get to see everybody's position. You can see the risk that might influence, the pace, whether you're going to run, how you're going to run or not. If somebody's really close to you, does that?
Actually, yeah, again, it doesn't really matter on a big ocean race. You just go.
Okay.
Just go. Yeah.
I'm curious, the orange box, what assumptions or narratives are we holding on to about resilience and high performance that we just need to pay attention to?
This idea that resilience is an individual piece, and what are the conditions for resilience to flourish for teams and individuals, often looks at the accountability of the systems and structures that people are working inside of, that sets expectations, and how work is done inside patterns of white supremacy and colonial structures.
Yeah, I think resilience, we can cultivate it individually, but it is so deeply impacted by our systems, whether it's our families or our physiology or the systemic influences around us, right?
Yeah. Or the other crew members, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you've got a crew member who is grumpy and difficult and doesn't do good handoffs, that makes a huge difference to the whole crew, because it's such a small space. It's like viral.
Yeah. I'm going to go back here in the slides to this one. And I don't know if we can't quite zoom in, it'd be hard to do, but these folks are smiling. And I don't think they're smiling just for the camera. We have video footage of these guys, like these boats are stripped down to such a level that they take out the sound systems. Like there's no radio. Everything is like, you have to have just what's essential on the boat. And so for entertainment, they sing and they keep themselves, they sing whatever comes to mind. And so I was just thinking, like their mood, I think one group perhaps sang more and was more joyful. What happens with the other group? Or even boat to boat, does one boat have a joyful singing culture and they're tapping into that creative energy that's keeping them going? Or is it just such a painful slog, and for me that speaks volumes about the resilience and that capacity to endure and be high performing over an extended period. We are at the top of the hour. Wow, this was such a fun conversation. And I want to thank you so much for joining. I didn't allow time in this. I kind of got swept up into the whole conversation. We didn't really touch on the now what's. For those of you who need to leave and it's the top of the hour, please feel free to sign off. Thank you so much for participating. And I've just loved this dialogue so much. I found it to be so intriguing.